How do you turn a T into a P? You drink it. Okay, so I want to try something a little bit different. I'm going to move away from a concept thing, and I want to show some cool arpeggio patterns today. They happen within 3 octaves, so you've got your root note, and then an octave above that, and then it stops at the octave above that, and then heads back down. And these shapes are all movable around the neck, and we're going to talk about just basic triads and also 7th chords. Also, I've been doing a lot of recording at home, so I happen to have my nifty Boss Katana 100. So the sounds that you hear today are going to be coming from that. And if you like that tone, then congratulations, you're going to be hearing a lot more of that on the Geff album. Okay, so why these 3 octave shapes? Like that. You know, here are our 3 octaves, right? If we're starting on the 12th fret here, then an octave up, and then another octave up. Well, there's a couple of reasons for this. For one, I find this octave shape, this triple octave shape, super easy to see, right? And everything that's happening in relation to these becomes very visible to me. 2, there's very little hand motion. I don't have to wind up doing anything like this. You can see I'm traveling up that way. When I do the arpeggio within the 3 octaves, my hand generally stays in the same place. You know, within this 4 fret, 3 octave area. Alright, so let's break some of these down, right? So let's start with triads. So the basic minor triad, you've now heard me and seen me play it a couple of times. It just sounds like this. So I'm doing my first finger, then my little finger, then my ring finger, then my middle finger, first finger again, little finger, ring finger, and then the same thing in reverse. Little, pointer, middle, ring, little, and then pointer again. There's a bit of kind of a jump switch that you have to do with your hands when you're playing 2 notes that share a fret. I kind of, you know, it's that Greg Howard motion coming from the movement of your hands thing that really allows that to strike cleanly. Otherwise you're going to kind of hit in the back of the fret. And I find that stuff like this, for me at least, using that hand motion technique that Greg has perfected really comes in handy for when I'm playing multiple notes that share a fret or the same note on the same fret multiple times. Alright, now let's talk about the major one. It's basically the same fingering, but all I'm going to do is take these notes and then bump them up a half step. There's a bit of a stretch here between your pinky and your ring finger. So the fingering again is pointer, little, ring, middle, pointer, little, ring, and then reverse. And like I said, just between the 3rd and the 5th, those 2nd and 3rd notes, the 3rd of the chord and the 5th of the chord, just be aware that you're going to have to shift a little bit to grab that note. At least I do, because, you know, my pinky and my ring finger aren't the most dexterous combination. Moving on, we have the Augmented Arpeggio, and an augmented chord is built like, you know, basically it's 2 major thirds stacked on top of each other. You got your root, then a major third, and then another major third. And so it's going to look like this, right? It's going to be, and this one is just going to be pointer, little, middle, sorry, pointer, little, ring, middle, pointer, little, ring, and then back. And finally, the diminished triad arpeggio is going to look kind of like this. Now keep in mind, this is not the fully diminished chord. We'll get into that in a little bit. And so there's going to be a little bit of weirdness with the fingering. Not really weirdness, just a stretch that kind of moves away from what we've been dealing with so far. So you've got your pointer finger, and then your little finger, and then your middle finger, followed by your ring finger, and then pointer again, and then ring again. Here's where the stretch is. Normally, if everything was in position, or not in position, but if it weren't for that flat fifth of the diminished arpeggio, then I would probably wind up using my pinky, as I have with the other arpeggios. But we've got that flat fifth in there, so I want to stretch out to my ring finger and then catch that top octave with my pinky. Alright, so those are the basic triads. Now let's take it one step further into seventh chords. Basically, we were working with three different types of notes. You can imagine, or I like to explain chords as like kind of a fruit salad, and each different type of note is a different type of fruit. In E minor, you have E, G, and B, right? And that repeats over and over and over again. So you could have a fruit salad that has apples, grapes, and bananas. Let's pretend apple starts with an E. So apples, grapes, and bananas. And no matter how many apples, grapes, or bananas you still only have three types of fruit, right? So now we're going to add the seventh on top of it, and we're adding a fourth type of fruit, right? So, looking at the minor arpeggio, it's going to look something like this. Now, that is pointer, little, ring finger, pointer again, now on the seventh, and then ring finger again, and then pointer again, and then little. Now we go to our middle finger, and little finger again. And the same in reverse, backwards. And what's nice about this shape is that there's like a very natural climb. It kind of feels almost like the minor pentatonic scale because we're only missing one note from the minor pentatonic scale. So there's this very natural climb that I'm doing with my fingers there. Moving on to the major seventh, we are going to basically move two notes up a half step. So our third moves up and our seventh moves up as well. So the whole arpeggio sounds like this. And that's built like this. Pointer, little, middle, pointer, middle, pointer, little, ring, and little. And then reverse that on the way back down. And it's, similar to the minor arpeggio, the minor 7 arpeggio. We've still got that climb there, just instead of sharing it between our pointer fingers and our ring fingers, we're now sharing it between our pointer finger and our middle finger. Alright, so now let's talk about the dominant 7 arpeggio. It's a mix of the major 7 and the minor 7. A dominant chord is a major triad with a minor 7th on top. So, it's going to sound something like this. To put this together, we use our pointer finger, little finger, middle finger, and then we're going to stretch to use our pointer finger again on that flat 7. So this whole part here is pinky, middle finger again. So, and then from there we use our pointer again. And now to our little finger, middle finger, little finger. Moving on to the half diminished. The half diminished chord is a diminished triad with a minor 7 on top. Right? So it's going to start out pretty similar to the diminished triad because it's got one on there. Right? So we're going to use our pointer finger, then our little finger, then our middle finger. Now here's where it gets a little bit different. Pointer finger again for the flat 7, and then our ring finger for the root, and then our pointer finger again for the flat 3rd, and now we're going to use our ring finger. We're to do the same as the the triad version. We're doing that stretch over to our ring finger so that we can use our middle finger on the next note and then our little finger on the highest note. And finally, the fully diminished triad. And this one is the most different and, in my opinion, the simplest one of the entire group. We're just going to do minor thirds with our pointer finger and our little finger, and then move up a string and up a fret. This is the only one that kind of pushes out of position, but this is such an easy arpeggio to do because it's just the same shape. You just got to make sure you're moving up a fret every time. So these are just some basic arpeggio shapes. I really like to use them, you know, not very consecutively. Like a lot of times I will, you know, use the arpeggio shape that belongs to the 3rd note in a chord, right? So if I'm in C, I'll do like an E minor arpeggio over the top of it to make a C major 7 arpeggio, right? And this works because, you know, C major 7 is spelled C-E-G-B, and an E minor arpeggio is E-G-B, right? So it would sound something like this. There's my C. And then if you want to use the minor 7, you know, E, G, B, D, D becomes the 9th off of the root. So you have this like beautiful extended chord. And you know, I like to try mixing and matching different arpeggios. Like, how extended can I get it? If I did a G major arpeggio off of the C here, right? If I did something like this, it's got that F sharp in there, the G major 7 arpeggio. G, B, D, F sharp. And F sharp is the sharp 4, the tritone, off of C. So it gives a really strong Lydian sound. Right, and you can take that further and further. You know, and if I wanted to do a C dominant, I would use the half diminished, because that's E, G, B flat, D, right? So that becomes like a C 7-9, right? A very kind of jazzy sounding chord. just a couple of ideas and some shapes to help you out in learning these. Learn them. I find them really useful for like not moving my right hand. They're all kind of like right there, you know, which is nice, except for that fully diminished one. You got to move a little bit for that, but it's so easy to see, it doesn't really make much of a difference to me. But yeah, take these and try them out, learn them, and see the different ways that you can apply them. That's the real fun of it. You know, here is the information, and it's up to you to apply them creatively. Cool. So I hope you found that informative. I'd like to do more videos like this personally in the next coming year. I like these little building block Lego pieces. I think of them as, you know, Legos in building a song or building a lick or something like that. You know, you take these little things and you put them here, right? If the major arpeggio is like a blue Lego, right? You put the blue Lego in for one eye, and then if the minor arpeggio is a brown Lego, then that could be the other eye of your, you know, of your Lego man, right? If you're building a Lego man out of music, because that's how Legos work. So take that and enjoy yourself and keep exploring. I'll see you next time.